can see the author.
Yeah, total depravity.
What's going on, everybody? It's Hallé with Witness the Light Music. I'm doing another mix breakdown, part 2 of the track 5 off of Joshua Kriese and Evident SDG's project Ad Fontes Volume 1. I had the pleasure of mixing this EP. Totally one of my favorite projects I've worked on so far. The content and just sonically, it was something that challenged me. I really enjoyed it and wanted to share a little bit of what I did and my process when it came down to it. So I'm going to play back the verse. You guys can check it out. This is Evident SDG off the single off of their project.
We'll begin with grace and disgrace. Salvation, kid, starts with the Father, homie. He is so gracious. Ephesians states it, kid, saved by grace. It is verse 8 and 9, homie. See the correlation. His foreknowledge in salvation is plain. His elect purpose to pass in its frame. Not just the plan in saving his people, but all of his doings and actualization. By faith alone, apart from works, but all the works done by the word is actual. What Christ has done to give the.
All right, let me jump in here quickly, show you guys what I did. Now, my first go-to plugin before I throw on auto-tune on. Now I have the UAD Time Advance from UAD. What I used was a simple EQ just to kind of brush up and clear up a little bit of the lows and the rumbles going into the auto-tune. Now that's a trick I learned specifically from auto-tune, and they recommend doing that. So I started doing that, and it started making a little bit of a difference, especially because and now auto-tune was not reading any of the lower frequencies sitting on that EQ. And it was just registering what you wanted it to register. And that was around 105 hertz there that I rolled it off to. In order to find the actual key of the song, I used AutoKey from Antares. Now this is a great little tool to have, great little plugin to have if you have auto-tune, one of the newer versions of it. And what it does is it reads, you put this on your instrumental, on your music bus, on your music fader, and then it actually reads the audio coming through and tells you what key the music's in, and then you can send that to auto-tune. Now, I used it on this project. It gave me C# minor, and it ended up working perfectly. So I threw the auto-tune on there. As you saw before, if you watched part 1, I used Mic Mod EFX on Josh's vocals. I did use the Neumann TLM 103 for Josh's modeled mic, and then he was on an NT1A, so I used that. But for Miguel, he's recording on an AKG Perception 120. So that's my source mic. Antares has this great tube saturation that they offer just specifically as a plugin in itself. And that is what I use 65% of. And then from there, I just went to model it like a Neumann TLM 103. Now, I don't know if necessarily it sounds like a TLM 103, but what it does do, it gives it a high shelf, higher frequency kind of EQ tilt that helps cut through the music. It helps vocals sound really clean and just crisp. And I really liked what it did specifically on this specific instrumental. So that was my choice. Typically, I am using the TLM 103. I really enjoy the sound it gives. It cleans up muddy vocals, and it gives, again, that crisp sound that you're looking for really clean vocals. And then going back into an Oxide from UAD. It's a tape machine. Amazing. I love this tape machine. It gives it so much body, so much depth. Always enjoy what it does to instrumentals, to kick drums, to bass. If you are a UAD user and you don't have the Oxide, please invest in yourself. Yeah, they're it's pretty expensive plugins, but they're one of the best things that you could have for when it comes to mixing music. You'll really see your audio kind of change and progress. I'm going to show you guys what it does without and what it does with. Here we go.
We'll begin with grace and disgrace. Salvation, kid, starts with the Father, homie. He is so gracious. Ephesians states it, kid, saved by grace. It is verse 8 and 9, homie. See the correlation. His foreknowledge in salvation is plain. His elect purpose to pass in its frame. Not just the plan in saving his people, but all of his doings and actualization. By faith alone, apart from works, but all the works done by the word is actual. What Christ has done to give the Son and place his sons in right positions is factual.
Now, if you can hear that at home or on your devices, your earbuds, you heard a bump in the thickness in his vocals. That's what we're looking for, especially with the oxide. So, already we're 1, 2, 3, 4 plugins in, and we haven't done too much aside from just starting to shape the tone. And that's kind of the concept behind why I use so many plugins, is because I'm slowly and easily and small details shaping the tone that I want. From there, I go into a Pro de-esser to control the highs. Rolling off around 10.9K. I'm starting to affect my highs there and getting some reduction on the frequencies in that range. Let's check it out.
We'll begin with grace and this great salvation, kid. Starts with the Father, homie, he is so gracious. Ephesians states it, kid, saved by grace. It is verse 8 and 9, homie, see the correlation. His foreknowledge in salvation is plain. It's a
So going into a de-esser usually helps to start controlling already what you're adding. So, like what I added already with the mic mod, the oxide. So because it was getting a little too bright, even though you like the brightness, but you still want to control it, you're throwing in the de-esser there. And then I go into reductive EQ. This is when I reduce the frequencies that I don't necessarily believe are working well with the music. And that's what you got to listen for. If you're not using studio headphones or studio monitors, you can still do this in order to get the sound that you want. It'll just be tough because
we'll begin with grace and this great salvation.
You really need to have a good listening source. And if that's headphones or, if you're sitting in front of normal speakers, not studio speakers, you could still use this type of plugin, especially the Pro Q3, because it's not going to, it actually gives you tips on where frequencies are starting to resonate. Now, I'm going to show you how that works here on Pro Q3. Here we go.
We'll begin with grace and this great salvation, kid. Starts with the Father, homie, he is so gracious. Ephesians states it, kid, saved by grace. It is verse 8 and 9, homie, see the correlation. His foreknowledge in salvation is plain.
Now you see all these frequencies that are resonating. Now that is the frequencies that I looked at and I started ducking. Now I kind of used a de-esser to duck the frequencies in the highs and then some of the frequencies that are resonating here in the mids. That was where I started to bring down, what was I at here? Minus 3 dB. Nothing too serious, nothing too crazy, but it did start to help kind of help the vocals start to sit in the pocket and not have those frequencies that may, once the track gets louder through mastering, could start to affect your ears. And then from there, I go into a virtual mix rack from Slate, trimmer to control what's going in, virtual channel, and that's literally controlling what's going into my virtual channel, and I'm using an input and drive to make sure that I can get the color I'm looking for. And then from there, it's going to be the FG116, the FET compressor. Now let's see how much gain reduction I'm getting.
We'll begin with grace and this great salvation, kid. Starts with the Father, homie, he is so gracious. Ephesians states it, kid, saved by grace. It is verse 8 and 9, homie, see the correlation. His foreknowledge in salvation is plain. His elect purpose to pass by faith alone, apart from works, but all the works done by the word is actual. But Christ has done to give the Son and place his sons and right. But all of his doings and actualization by faith alone, apart from.
Now, if you saw that, actually, maybe it was a decision that I made while I was mixing it. I would have now gone in with trim and turned some of this volume down and up, depending on what I needed to do. But instead, I used this FG116 FET compressor. It's not actually giving me any gain reduction when it's in this first part of the verse. But then when it goes into the second part of the verse, that's when it starts kicking in. And I think that's what was my idea, was trying to control what was happening in that second part of the verse. He wasn't necessarily louder. I think he was a little bit more, just a little bit more, more dynamic in his performance, with a little bit more peaks there. Now let's check it out. Here we go.
But all of his doings and actualization by faith alone, apart from works, but all the works done by the word is actual. But Christ has done, but all of his doings and actualization by faith alone, apart from works, but all the works done by the word is actual.
So yeah, it was giving me, around minus 3 dB of gain reduction at a ratio of 4. So not too much compression, just enough to kind of give me the thickness in the vocal that I'm looking for. And then to Revival. Revival is just kind of a go-to just to give it a little thickness, and shimmer at the top. It's a great little plugin just to kind of throw at the end of your chain, or even at the beginning of your chain, depending on what you're looking for, to kind of get more saturation. It's all about that grit, that saturation that makes things sound really clean in your face, kind of thing. And then from there, I go into a Pro C2. The Pro C2 is, again, it's just technical compression. I'm not looking to add color. I'm just looking to control. That's what the Pro C2 is here for its purpose. Here, let's take a listen.
But all of his doings and actualization. By faith alone, apart from works, but all the work's done. By the word is actual, what Christ has done. But all of his doings and actualization. By faith alone, apart from works, but all the work's done. By the word is actual, what Christ has done.
So yeah, you'll be able to hear and see even the change in control. And that's what I'm looking for, is trying to control the vocals, those pops, those dynamic parts of the vocal that I want to bring down a little bit. Now, I guess I kind of cheated here when I showed you guys my my vocal chain without processing, because I do go into another main vocal bus. Now, this is something that I started doing just to kind of, small bit by small bit, try to get a little bit done in the main vocal track, and then that goes into a bus where I can control and do a little bit more. Now, that's where I use some more processing here. I'll play back what it sounds like without any of the processing on the main bus for Miguel here. Let's take a look.
To actually change us, no other means can judicially free us. Exclusively, Christ is our salvation. All of our sins expiates and he keeps us graciously.
Now I'll go and I'll show you guys exactly what it sounds like here with all that.
To actually change us, no other means can judicially free us. Exclusively, Christ is our salvation. All of our sins expiates and he keeps us graciously. Takes away all damnation.
So I'm getting a ton of a ton of control. I'm getting some EQ, coloring EQ, and even a little bit of parallel compression with the Mana compressor. I'll go through that here. So now going back into the VMR, I enjoy the VMR. Again, for more control, almost the exact same setting that I have on the other VMR on the specific main vocal track. And then from there, I go into the 1176 for more leveling and more control. Again, I'm not hitting these too hard. Check it out.
To actually change us, no other means can judicially free us. Exclusively, Christ is our salvation. All of our sins expiates and he keeps us graciously. Takes away all damnation. Soulless crypto.
That's looking like 2 dB gain reduction. Nothing whatsoever there. Well, I guess it is something, but it's nothing too much, that even though it may look like a lot of processing, it's and then the 1176 is giving me that limiting feeling on the vocal. Then that leads me into another instance of Pro C2. Again, Pro C2 intended for technical compression, just to control. Here we go.
To actually change us, no other means can judicially free us. Exclusively, Christ is our salvation.
Now with this one specifically, I actually took off the auto gain because I didn't want any more gain. I just wanted control. That's exactly what I was looking for, balance and control. Once I was done with my compression chain here, I went into what I started using a little differently now, but this day I was using it in the 4K here with the Puke Tech from Waves. Add some colorization with the EQ.
To actually change us, no other means can judicially free us. Exclusively, Christ is our salvation. All of our sins expiates and he keeps us. To actually change us, no other means can judicially free us. Exclusively, Christ is our salvation.
I was looking to get the EQ, the vocal to start popping in the 4K range. That 4K range is where you want to hear the vocal sit in the instrumental. Again, all of these EQ moves I'm doing with the instrumental playing, typically in mono and nice at a very low volume, while I'm really trying to balance everything out that's happening. This was not a stemmed out instrumental. This was actually a premix instrumental, and we got some tricks coming up when it comes to how to EQ your vocals with a premix instrumental, which is, I don't know, 85% of what is being, you know, provided out there to a lot of rappers. All right, now what do I do here? I go into an REQ6, Renaissance EQ6, giving me a little boost, about a 3 dB boost in the 9K range. Give me a little bit of that shimmer, more air. Really great EQ. This is one of my favorite EQs. I actually haven't used it in a little bit, but maybe I should go back to it here. Let's take a look.
To actually change us, know what the means can judicially free us exclusively. Christ is our salvation, all of our sins expiates, and he keeps us graciously, takes away all damnation. Sola scriptura, the source of our mentions, infallible.
So I bypassed it there while it was playing, but exactly what you heard was that lift in that top end there, 9K, and bump in that 1.5K range, just to kind of give it a little bit more presence where the vocals sit in the beat. And then from there, Manic Compressor. This one's a slept-on compressor. I've seen a little bit more people using it, but this was one of the secret weapons that I've had in my toolbox here. It's a very powerful compressor. You got a lot of settings you can use it with. You can go in depth with it. But today, the day I was mixing this track, what I was doing was I was just using it for some parallel compression. So I'll give you guys an idea of what it sounds like. Here we go.
To actually change us, know what the means can judicially free us exclusively. Christ is our salvation, all of. To actually change us, know what the means can judicially free us exclusively. Christ is our salvation, all of our sins expiates, and he keeps us graciously, takes away all damnation. Sola scriptura, the source of our mentions, infallible.
So a little parallel compression right on that track. What I'm doing is I'm just blending the wet signal, and it's actually, I'm not crushing it. I'm not actually, to its truest sense, doing parallel compression where I'm crushing the signal and then blending it back in. What I'm doing, I'm just giving myself a little bit more depth, a little bit more power by blending in a semi-compressed signal, and Manic Compressor is a great tool for that. So what I have next here is the Pro MB. Pro MB is going to be another great tool once you start getting into multiband compression, multiband EQs, multiband excitement. This type of compressor helps you narrow in to specific frequencies that you want either to press or to expand. And this day that I was mixing, the Pro MB, I'm actually using it as an expander in 2 instances, and then on that top end, I was using it as a compressor to maybe bring down the highs. Let's take a look. Let's have a listen. Let's see what it does.
To actually change us, know what the means can judicially free us exclusively. Christ is our salvation, all of our sins expiates, and he keeps us great. To actually change us, know what the means can judicially free us exclusively. Christ is our salvation, all of our sins expiates, and he keeps us.
Now, if you listen back and if you have good system to hear what you're looking at and what you're hearing, what you're going to hear is a little bit more depth in his lower range of his vocals. And I was looking for the depth because I think what had happened was through some of the processing I had done, I had lifted maybe too many highs and dipped too many lows. So I had to correct that. And instead of going into the EQ and messing with the EQ, I just decided to throw an instance of MB on there, and sure enough, lift up about 2.38 dB in the range from 112 hertz to 703 hertz to kind of give it a depth, thickness in his vocal. And then again, a little bit from 700 to 4K to give it a little bit more depth and thickness and power in that part of the vocal, and then dipping so I can control the highs. And then from there, de-esser, of course, just the normal de-esser, giving me some control from 7.5K, not too much reduction. Let's see what's happening here.
To actually change us, know what the means can judicially free us exclusively. Christ is our salvation, all of our sins expiates, and he keeps us graciously.
Yeah, not much there, just about 1.9, 2 dB of gain of reduction when it came to the de-esser. Now, one of the things that I also like to do is have a specific vocal bus where all my vocals are being routed to, my dubs, my layers, everything. And that's goes into what I call my vocal chain. I'm just going to switch my view here for Pro Tools. I'm going to show you what that looks like. You see it here highlighted with vocals. So what I start with is I go with a BX console. The Focusrite from Plugin Alliance. This is starting to kind of shape my main vocal tone. So even Josh is going into this exact same. So I have Josh and Miguel going into the same, for example, console sound. And then from there, controlling, and that's in referencing to the instrumental. Everything that's being done is specifically done with the instrumental. Again, I can't stress that anymore. It's super important if you want to get a clean vocal to sit with your beat. So I'm reducing, and then maybe I reduced too much, so I brought up. And looks like I don't know what I was doing this day, but it definitely worked. And I brought up, what is that? Let's see here, 3.8. Brought it up about 2.31. Again, a shelf to give me a little bit more of a lift in the highs, dipping, I don't know what that is, 0.5K, 3K. So from there, then I go into my Pro MB again to control. This time now I am controlling my lower vocal tone, the power of it to raise up the pocket. That's what I like to call it, the pocket vocal tone, vocal range, controlling the S's. And then from there, going into the Shadow Hills from Plugin Alliance. And this one actually is kind of giving me the tone and the feel that I'm really looking for. Great compressor. It's optical and discrete compressor in one little plugin, and it's great. It's powerful. It's super good. And then from there, I'm going into the Pro DS again for the highs, and then Nectar. Nectar I use specifically only for the automatic level meter and then the limiter. And this just helps me kind of get my vocals leveled at the end of my whole vocal chain. It also talks to isotope, and it talks to everything else too when I'm mastering and finishing up the mix. And that helps with seeing where things are sitting, specifically vocals with the instrumental. So now that was quite the breakdown. I had a little bit more in mind I wanted to talk about, but I'll leave that for another video. Next video, part 3, is going to be me breaking down the instrumental. The instrumental is actually, I did a lot of chops and some post-production on it to kind of give it a little bit more of a different vibe than what we got from the producer. Not necessarily, it wasn't a good instrumental at all. It was just, I wanted a little bit of something to be able to control it more and to be able to have a sound specifically blending with Josh and Miguel. And so you kind of have to work the instrumental a bit to get that sound. So, but for now, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. If you did watch this video throughout, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe button on the YouTube there. It's my first kind of plug to do that. I don't really do that. I guess I'm kind of new to the whole YouTube gang. But other than that, guys, I appreciate if you did tune in and you watched this. Hit me up on Facebook and Instagram. And from there, I'll let you guys listen out to the rest of the track. If you guys are ready, here we go. Here we go.
To actually change us, know what that means, can judicially free us exclusively. Christ is our salvation, all of our sins expiates, and he keeps us graciously, takes away all damnation. Sola scriptura, the source of